Welcome back to the Ride and Laugh podcast. If you love mountain biking, you are in the right place. Picture your last really fun group ride. You're back at the parking lot. The stoke is high. Everyone's talking about bikes, trails, tech, nutrition. You love bikes. We love bikes. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you today?
Danny, I almost killed myself right there, but I am doing fantastic. We had an amazing week. Sleepovers, gigs, mystery meatballs, and great rides. Danny, how are you doing?
Yeah. Oh, man, that was a great intro. I think maybe you need to start reading the Welcome Back to the Ride and Laugh. I mean, first of all, if you're listening to this on the podcast, Sage is now preparing intros and physical intros on the YouTube. So last week he literally dropped in. This week, as I'm like finishing doing the intro, which maybe we can just record that. You know, it's good. Do we just record the intro? No, I like having a fresh intro every week.
Yes, and you change it every so often.
I do, and I always want to add that's the conversation we're having every week for all our new listeners. We're always talking about this stuff. It's always bikes. Yes, you love bikes, we love bikes. And as I'm saying, let's drop in. Sage is like preparing his stunt. And so as soon as the podcast starts, I finish speaking, and then you just hear me giggling because of this guy. But yeah, I love it. I'm here for it. And if you're listening on the podcast, then you can go back and watch the YouTube. We have added timestamps to the YouTube, so you could just jump to a section that you wanted to hear or maybe see that we talk about, and then you could just kind of scroll forward to watch that. Me personally, I would watch the whole thing again.
Well, but, you know.
All right. So you alluded to a whole bunch of things there. Do we want to jump into any of those in particular, or do we just start the podcast and bring those up as we go?
You know, Danny, well, I think it's safe to say the sleepovers bit. I mean, what a fantastic week it's been. You have come down to stay with me for a week. And it's just been magical, man. We got the band back together. It was unbelievable.
It was great. I was in Pennsylvania for a week. I had a work trip and get to stay with Sage and Big Paisan and Toshiko, Big Paisan's fiance. Just a lovely family and just a wonderful home. And they have a spare room and. You know, it's tall enough for a lanky guy to walk around. You're never sure with these Japanese people. You know, I didn't know if I was going to be
banging your head on
it. No, you're never really sure with the older homes in Philadelphia. You're never really sure. But no, it's great. Sage has a spare room, and I can come down into his office and just start bothering him right away. So I was doing some working. But we got to hang out a ton. We got to talk a ton. We just kept laughing over and over because we would be staying up late into all hours, or we would be at a restaurant and we would just be talking bikes and talking bikes and talking bikes. And I'm just like, you know, I don't know if people really believe us when we say that the reason we started a bike podcast is because we just talk about this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And then we do a ride and Shelly's with us and we start talking about bikes on the trail. And I think Shelly's thinking like, this is a good topic. Like she said, how often do you guys start talking and think like we should save this for the podcast? And it's like every conversation,
pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much all the time. Should be on the
podcast. So if you're listening to this, you obviously love bikes. If you've hung out or met Sage and I in person, you know that we love bikes. And it's just a fun topic, and it intertwines with life so much. And there's so much personal growth, and there's so much that comes back onto the bike, and there's so much to prove our unlimited nature. In mountain biking. And life gets better and better and better, and mountain biking gets better and better, and we're all here for it, and it's awesome. So that was a long way of saying thank you for letting me stay at your house. We had a good time.
You are always welcome, man. It was really great. It was great you had mentioned we got to ride with Shelly. It was great to see Stick, and we got to see Stick perform, Former Strangers. That was really fun. And it really was like getting the band back together, you know, and just being able to share those experiences with you again was just tremendous. I wish the conditions were a little bit better, but yeah, still had a great time on the trails, man.
Yeah, who doesn't want to leave beautiful sunny Arizona in the winter when the weather is perfect and come to Pennsylvania where it was cold and snowy and icy? But that's the way it worked out. Stay tuned to the end. I will be talking at the end of the podcast about my living situation for anyone that's been wondering that. Some of our long-term listeners or some of our Pennsylvania listeners. So I'll be getting into that a little bit. We had a couple of really good rides, and one really good ride. We had new bike day.
Yeah.
And do we want to get into the comments or do we want to get into our rides?
Yes.
Let's get into comments. Let's do comments.
I love it.
All right, here we go. We are commenting on episode 51, which was 8.5 tips to increase your confidence when riding trails for the first time. This was blind riding. We did 8.5 because one of them was a pseudo tip. As I'm writing them all down, I said it's either 8 or 9. And so we went with 8.5, which we just thought was kind of funny, which goes with the whole ride and laugh theme.
Oh, yeah.
So in that episode, we were talking about is riding behind a local, riding a new trail that you've never ridden before, but you're riding behind a local, or you're riding behind another friend who's also riding blind, but you're not the first one with eyeballs on the trail.
Yeah.
Is that riding blind? You thought that is no longer riding blind. We've got some comments saying maybe that still is.
What?
So I think there's some debate to be had there, and feel free, rideandlaugh1@gmail or in the YouTube comments to put in your 2 cents on that. And we can talk about that some more because I think there's more there. But what we really wanted to know was we had an opportunity to make a term for riding a trail for the first time, but following someone. And our listeners came back and gave us some options, and there's some really good ones. So the new mountain bike term for riding blind, but following someone, options are, and maybe we'll put a poll out, riding enlightened.
Oh, okay.
Blind follow, piggyback, or riding piggyback. We got a couple, we had, I think 3 people independently said piggybacking, riding piggyback. I do really like that. Yeah. And then during the pod, the ones that you and I came up with were riding pirate, riding patched, riding cyclops. I don't think anyone took that one seriously. The idea being that you go from 2 eyes to 1 eye.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? I'm leaning towards piggyback, but I feel like there's a way that we could make that piggyback or piggyback and ride and piggyback. I feel like there's a way we could make that more mountain bike.
Yeah. I mean, piggyback almost could be, even if you weren't riding it blind, you could just, anytime you're following somebody, it could be piggyback. But
that's true.
Yeah, I do like that one.
Well, you know what? I like that. I like anytime you're following someone that you get a bump. You absolutely do. You and I talked about this so many times when I feel like you're in front of me on the downhill and I feel like I can go faster.
Yeah.
And, maybe at the end, I'll be like, yeah, dude, yeah, you were holding me up a little bit, no big deal, but yeah, right, I'm pretty sure I could go faster. And that happened enough times, both ways where that I think you just started to say, I think whoever's in front is just processing so much more.
Yes.
There's a bump to the person that's in the back.
Yeah.
As far as, seeing the line and seeing what line to take or what line not to take.
Yep. And
so that there is definitely a performance bump by the follower. So
yeah.
That could go in with the same term. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But maybe they should be different terms.
I don't know. I think we could take this one more level up.
Yeah.
Piggyback something or something piggyback. Yeah.
Yeah. We need terms for first time. Nothing I'm thinking of is appropriate. Version piggyback, it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound good.
That's terrible. Yeah.
Popping your piggyback cherry, that sounds awful. Edit that out, man. That really does sound terrible. Okay. So then also talking about riding blind, Aaron wrote in, which I thought was a really good point. Riding at night is like riding blind on your local trail sometimes.
Yo, yeah, that's a really, really good point. Yeah, I mean, actually, we've talked about that, about one of the things that you can do to change up your ride is ride the trails backwards, but then riding at night, like absolutely. I mean, it just takes what you knew about the trail and just throw it out the door. And suddenly you are refocusing on different things on the trail. Nothing looks the same. It's just a completely different expectation. And yeah, Aaron, fantastic point.
Yeah. I think riding at night is cool. Every time I've done it, it's like, wow, there's like something really special here too. And it really does change the way that you look at your trails. And sometimes you can just kind of not even know where you are in a trail system that you're really, really familiar with.
Yeah.
And it brings everything, comes at you so fast because you're not able to look ahead and you could lose your peripheral vision. So everything comes at you really fast. You really have to focus.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. If you're listening and you have not done a night ride before, the lights are so good that it's much, much better than you think. But I thought that was an excellent point by Aaron, that another way it's almost like riding blind. I don't know how much you'd be willing to open up the speed at night on some of these downhills.
Right. That would depend on how strong your light is.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Excellent comment. A series of comments from our buddy, Nicky Shreds, Salty Shreds.
Yes.
However,
Salty
whatever
Nick.
you want to call him, Salty Nick, not Salty Nick.
It's not.
Nick is not salty. Yeah. I like Nicky Shreds because his name is Nick and he shreds.
I know. That's the best.
But that's not his actual handle. So paraphrasing, Nick says, when riding blind, understand what your blind limits are. And he has blind limits in quotes, whether it be speed, airtime, size of the jump. You learn to read features, the more experience you gain. Sage is a beast with technical features and can gauge them in the moment of approach. I, meaning Nick, can hit big jumps blind because I'm comfortable with jumps and have the experience to read jumps and lips. But technical features, I have to take it slow and check them out before I get into them. Practice makes perfect. Experience gives way to mastery.
Yo, you know what I thought of as you're reading that? Skills with Phil. That dude, he rides trails blind. And I think you and I had commented on this once before. And he's like, I'm riding this trail for the first time. These jumps were massive. And and you and I are like, how does he know the right speed? And I think that you and I had thought, well, he's so good that, if there was a miscalculation, he could make the adjustment in the air. I didn't think about what Nick was saying, which is studying the lip and studying the trajectory of the jump. That makes a whole lot of sense too. Like just getting familiar with jumps, and you kind of get a feel for, okay, this is built like this. And then you get a feel for coming into it, what that speed should be. And I guess knowing what your prior jumps that you just hit did, there's probably so much information. And, I do that same technique on Slow Speed Tech. Like I'm already taking notes on how these rocks feel and what were the features that I hit before. And could there be some similarities that I can take, when I'm doing these things? So yeah, shout out Nick. That was awesome. And yeah, Skills with Phil just immediately popped into my head when he said that.
Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about with Phil. And that was what resonated with me when I was reading Nick's comment also, was that we have a comfort level approaching tech because of our experience.
Yeah.
And I've often wondered when I see people hitting these jump lines for the first time, how they just kind of know how much input and how much speed and how to approach the ramps. I've seen so many amazing YouTube videos where people are hitting a jump trail for the first or second time and they already have it dialed in.
Yeah.
And Nick's pointing out, when you have that experience of seeing these ramps and seeing like everything's just kind of, all the calculations are being done in your head automatically. That's where we want to get to, right? I mean, that's so cool. Yeah.
But by the way, still pre-ride, re-ride, free ride.
Yes.
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 I don't want anybody getting hurt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please pre-ride, re-ride, free ride. Don't take our advice to just send it. But he's talking about experience gives way to mastery. You're talking about another level. So, you're not, Slow Speed Tech to me, riding it blind and doing something consequential, it's scary, but to be able to carry enough speed to just hit all these jumps perfectly, like there's so much calculation in there. There's so much experience in there. I know we're unlimited and anything's possible. I'm looking forward to getting it. But I think it's just experience. It's just moving. It's just doing it, right?
So I got a question then, and this kind of goes back to the whole riding blind thing. Because as we were doing that episode, I was trying to find clips of riding blind, which is pretty much impossible because the person in front's usually not recording. But one clip that I did run into was the day that we went to Blue Mountain and they opened that new drop, the big drop. Right. They don't name their drops, so unfortunately there's no way to reference this drop, but it is the drop that gets you into the Upper Empire line. And it's pretty significant. It's I forget what the numbers are at this point now, but I feel like it's like 12 or 14 up and out. So like you really can't case this thing. But you and I had gotten advice from some of the lift guys and some of the workers at Blue Mountain saying what the speed was, what the trail speed was. But one of us still had to do it.
Yeah.
Is that riding blind? Even though we're looking at it, we're studying it. See, this is the difference. When you're riding blind, there's no looking and studying. You're literally taking information and you're applying it as you're riding. If you stop at a feature, is that still riding blind?
I think if you're not following someone, if you're hitting it for the first time, you're hitting it blind. You hit that for the first time. There was a bunch of riders standing around looking at that. It wasn't just us. Everyone, that was a brand new drop and you hit it. And now, and you hit it beautifully, but you hit it blind. You weren't following someone in.
Well,
now here's the question. Here's another follow-up question, because then I hit it based on you telling me that it was comfortable and giving me the speed, but I didn't follow you. I hit it blind and cased it.
Here's the hot
Terry
take.
Was behind me.
Yeah, poor Terry. Yes. No, here's the hot take, bro. I'm gonna say no on both. That's not traditionally riding it blind. That is sessioning. And there's a big difference. You know, when you're riding blind, it is literally taking information, processing, and there is no stopping. And that's what makes it so difficult. That's what makes it so exhilarating. And it takes a lot more brain processing power. We got a chance to stop at that drop and we got to study it. How far is the distance? You and I had conversations. Hey, this is similar to Anthem, or this is slightly taller than Covenant. We had that conversation. So now I have an idea and I got to study all the nuances. You know, okay, I have this much time to get a pedal stroke in, or how many pedal strokes can I get in? That kind of information isn't available to you when you're truly riding blind. I think that would be considered sessioning.
I know when I was at Pure O with AJ, he hit the tree gap drop. And then we went down and we looked at the last drop, which is pretty big and very consequential if you don't make it.
Yeah.
And while we were looking at it, someone came through and we saw the person come through and hit every feature. You could see them hitting the features from a distance.
Yeah.
But we saw them come through at like perfect speed and just flow through that whole thing. And I saw him hit it. And then I saw AJ hit it several times. So if I had gone and done that, even though I had never been on that trail before, last time I was on it, I don't remember. If I had gone and done one of those, there's no way I would have considered that doing it blind. I just studied it. I just saw people do it.
So you agree?
So I think I do have to agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen.
That said, I do think it's more difficult, even having seen it done. See, you prefer it this way, but even having seen it done, it would be more difficult for me to go back there and do it on my own. I would much rather say, okay, AJ, I'm ready. Tow me in. Give me the speed.
Yeah. But you, it sounds like you agree. And I think you're correct in agreeing with me.
Maybe we need another term. Piggybacking is following
that's
someone.
Sessioning.
It's just sessioning? You think it's just sessioning?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen.
Blind session?
A blind session. Yeah. I mean, I went to all those gap jumps at Sears and did those gap jumps at Deuces with Logan. And I'm not a follow guy. I don't like to follow people in. So if that was blind, then I could say I did never reference that as a blind thing. I said it was sessioned. You know, I got to see Logan's speed. I got to see his takeoff point and all that stuff. And I don't want to say it's cheating. It's not cheating, but it's like, that's all information that I'm getting in my head and I'm able to process. It's not blind riding.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, I mean, let's see what listeners say. Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail and YouTube comments. Is sessioning something and doing it for the first time, especially not following someone, is that still considered blind? I think you make a really good point. I know last podcast you were yelling at me because I kept agreeing with you, but we're buddies. Sometimes I often agree with you. These are good points. I'm sorry. Like, I'm easily swayed by a good point. I see riding blind, and there's no formal definition for this. There's no mountain bike dictionary. Ooh, maybe we'll start a mountain bike dictionary.
The Ride and Laugh Mountain Bike Dictionary. Yes.
Yes. Oh yeah, it would be so useful for newbies to be like, what are these guys talking about? Case?
Whip it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. I mean, at first it could probably fit in your pocket, but eventually it's going to be like a big, dusty tomb that you're going to pull out, like after so many episodes. It'll go in the Ride and Laugh Museum.
There you go. Yep.
So there's no set term on what riding blind is, but in my mind, as you're talking, as we're hashing this out, it's riding down the trail for the first time with nobody in front of you, or if you're piggybacking, maybe there's an argument there, but it's the first time and you're flowing.
Yeah.
And you're in that flow state, and you're just rocking your skills and your confidence.
Yeah.
And if you stop to look at something, then that part of the trail it's not truly blind. There could be another term for that besides sessioning. When you session something and you're doing it for the first time, maybe there's another term for that. Let us know. YouTube comments, Ride and Laugh. I mean, we're getting into the weeds. We're getting pretty deep into the terms here.
Yeah.
Subsections of the dictionary. All right. This is the part of the podcast where we ask everyone to rate and subscribe. Give us 5 stars on your podcast player, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and watch it until the end, and share it with your friends. If you like it, share it with your friends. We have lots of our listeners sharing it on Instagram as well and other social media. So just gratitude to our listeners. We appreciate you so much. And if you're enjoying it, let your friends know. And you can also give us a review on Apple, and actually give us a real review, and we'll read those from time to time. It looks like Apple is back up and running. So yes, the plan that Big Podcast had to slow us down has failed. We're back.
Failed.
Yeah. Can't stop us. You can't stop it. Yeah. You can only slow us down, but we're blind podcasting. But we're flowing with it.
It feels like that. It feels like that sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. We might want to stop and session a couple of these sessions. The audience is like, maybe you guys could have sessioned that conversation before you had it. Like, I think you probably could have done a little bit better on that one. You guys want to work on that one? I don't know. You should send it blind. Yeah. Blind piggybacking. We just blind piggybacked that whole conversation. That's right.
Yeah, we did.
All right. I want to talk about, we did get a couple of rides together.
Yes.
So we should talk about them, because one of those rides was brand new bike day for you. And the day after that was second ride.
Yeah.
Better ride. So I want to get your perspective on the bikes, and we want to talk about those rides a little bit. So tell us about our rides on Saturday and Sunday.
I got to tell you, the 2 days kind of like blended together for me, because they were just, the conditions were like almost the same, but we went for a recon ride on Saturday to see what trails we could ride on Sunday. So, and then we ended up riding a lot of the same trails, but the bike,
what were the conditions?
I got to tell you,
why did we have to do a recon ride? What were the conditions?
Well, first of all, Mount Penn has its own ecosystem. So even though we had no snow at my place in Philadelphia, Mount Penn, we just didn't know what to expect. And I'm glad that we did that, because there were still spots on Mount Penn that had snow on it, or had gone through a freeze thaw. And then now you have this like icy glaze over some part of the trail. So there's like a mixture of ice, snow, and frozen dirt. And so it was really important for us to recon what trails were actually going to be rideable. And I'm glad that we did, because we were able to find out pretty quickly that the jump line was out. Like that was going to be a no-go. We didn't even waste our time. So we focused on the tech, which is, my bread and butter. I love the tech, and so do you. And I got to tell you, bro, absolutely blown away with how well this bike did. And I don't know, man. It just, I felt like it fit me. I felt like it moved in the way that I needed it to move. It didn't feel big, which is a big concern that I have with the 29-inch wheels. It didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like sluggish or, I can't get around this. It felt really good, Danny.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So we're talking about Sage's brand new Specialized Stump Jumper 15. Yes. He demoed the S3. He purchased an S2. I'm saying that's he, right. Like you're not.
I'm right here.
You're sitting right in front of it. Yeah. And the S2 has a 29er front wheel and a 27.5 back wheel, which is called a mullet.
Yes.
You have never, you demoed the e-bike on the mullet, but it's been a really long time. You're a 27.5 guy.
Yeah.
You kind of ideally would want both wheels to be 27.5. But at the end of the second day, you were saying that 29er front wheel felt like it had some rollover benefits that you were really enjoying flying down some of these chunky trails.
It felt great. You won't toot your own horn, so I will toot your horn for you. The things that stuck out to me
your hands
was
off
I
of my
didn't
horn.
know.
Keep your hands off my horn.
Keep your.
You know what? You know what? I think it's a good thing. Actually, if your friend wants to toot your horn, that means they want to give you a compliment.
Yes. I am trying to give you a compliment. Yes.
I'm sorry. Please wrap your tiny Japanese hands around my horn and toot away.
That's so awkward.
You're like, you know what? I'm not going to compliment you now. Now you made it weird. You made it weird.
There'll be no horn tooting. Yeah. You made it weird. Please don't make this weird.
Too late.
The thing that I was really interested and curious to see was how fast you would acclimate yourself to the terrain. And you acclimated very quickly. And then the other thing was how much more fit you were than me, because you're coming from Arizona where the days are beautiful. This is prime riding season. Mm-hmm. And I'm in not prime riding season, and I'm not in prime riding shape. And the difference was noticeable. I mean, we were riding with Shelly, who she smartly brought an e-bike, and you and her were like, no problem at the climbs. And Stick and I were in the back huffing and puffing. Actually, Stick was he did pretty well that day. So maybe it was just me, but yeah, Danny, you were on top of it.
It was really interesting. It was really cool. It was really interesting. I've been saying to all these Arizona riders out here, I want to see what you guys are like in other spots because the riding out here is so challenging in so many different ways. And I did feel a bump in confidence. I am definitely really strong. I definitely felt really fit on those climbs. I was having a conversation with Shelly, who was on her e-bike. I was having a conversation with her at parts where normally I would just be huffing and puffing. I felt really good. And then when we got to the tech, I don't know how much of this is me riding Arizona and how much of this is the podcast. And I hope everyone's coming along with us and progressing and using some of these tips, because that break the glass tip on jumps, but break the glass also on tech, being centered and not doing the fear response of moving away, moving back on the bike and being more aggressive. It felt really good. I was really stoked with how comfortable I felt on a lot of these features that I've been on many, 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 many times. Yeah. And I felt more comfortable last week than I have maybe ever. It's just like the body position makes such a big difference. So it was really cool. It was really exciting. And I appreciate you noticing that and tooting my horn.
Well, shout out to Stick, because he was super impressive on that ride as well.
Oh my gosh.
In fact,
Stick rode great.
Yeah. He and I had been riding on snow for quite some time, and you could see it. Like his confidence in the terrain was unbelievable, and his fitness. He had just played a show the night before, and his fitness was on game. So shout out Stick, great ride. I haven't seen him ride like that in quite some time.
Yeah. All right. Well, last episode we talked about the best first mountain bike for new riders to own.
Yeah,
and this episode, we want to get into the best second bike. Mm-hmm. Last episode, we had no parameters. We just said, what's the best first bike? And Lanky D really struggled with that because I was all over the place before finally coming to the conclusion with you, which was your opening statement, that the hardtail, a good aggressive hardtail is a great place to start. And that was ultimately what our recommendation was. If you haven't heard the episode, go back and listen to it because maybe you disagree with it. And we're getting some great comments. I can't wait to read them all. But so if we're going under the premise that the first bike is the hardtail, what bike is next? Or do you have a different premise?
I have a little bit of a different premise. And as I was reading some of the comments, it kind of brought up something that you had referenced earlier in this podcast, which is at the time that we were coming up, the full suspension bikes weren't that great. So not only were they more money, but more money for what? It was still a really crappy bike. And so a hardtail. So our experience was the hardtail made more sense. But a lot of people were saying that a full suspension might actually be a better bike. And at first I was like, what? No, that's crazy. But then I was like, wait, we didn't have good full suspensions. Maybe we would have chose a full suspension if that was available to us. So I think that yes, I would still probably say hardtail is probably the first best bike, but I don't think that it's absurd or crazy to think that maybe someone's first bike would be a full suspension. How does that change the conversation that we're going to have today? Well, I would say it like this. If you agree that the hardtail was the bike that you should get, or that is the bike that you currently have, I think the obvious choice is a trail bike. Like that should be your next bike. I think you would agree. But let's do something different here.
Well, that's the pod then.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate you. We have gratitude.
Well, what if you and I went outside of the box here? What if trail bike was off the table? Because I think both of you and I would agree if you had a hardtail, then the trail bike is your next second bike. I don't know that many people would argue that. Let's go out of the box here. Take the trail bike off the table. You're allowed to pick any other bike as your second bike. Danny, what bike would it be?
Well, I have a question before that. And
okay.
Are we keeping our hardtail?
Well, you and I grew up in it. Again, going back to our experience, we always used our old bike as the stepping stone to being able to get the next bike. So I would sell, I don't know if you did this, but I had to sell my old bike to get the next bike. I would use that money to buy the next bike. But then eventually I got to a point where I could actually keep two bikes. So I think that if you got a good enough,
and then 4 bikes.
Now I'm like, now it's like, where do I store all these things? But if you are able to keep that bike, it's certainly worth upgrading and, making it better. Assuming you got $1,000 hardtail or whatever you paid for it, and it came with modern specs, you can upgrade that. You can upgrade the fork, you can upgrade the grips, whatever, the wheels. So if you can, I would hold on to it, Danny. And I think you would agree, right?
I do agree. And it was one of the comments that I read that we'll talk about next week. But it was, when you get your hardtail, make sure that you get the hardtail that is spec'd out nicely, that it has disc brakes, that it has a nice suspension, that it has good geo, it has some decent parts, and you can upgrade that as you go.
Right.
And you're going to find that when you also have your trail bike, your hardtail is going to have its place. Devin was lamenting, that he had sold his hardtail thinking he wasn't going to use it, but there's still a place for that bike. And sometimes it's nice just to switch it up. Okay, so to answer your question, and you're kind of putting me on the spot here, but that's good.
Yes, I am.
Is first bike hardtail, second bike can't be a trail bike.
Yeah.
So what are my options then? It sounds like my options are pretty slim. I have downhill bike, I have single speed, I have fat bike.
Yeah.
Dirt jumper, BMX.
Yeah. Those are all really good options. Absolutely. E-bike.
Okay. Oh, e-bike? Oh, well then e-bike. Done.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
I think that's the best option of those. I mean, on an e-bike, you got so many options. Now it's a full suspension bike. You can session, and you can still get your fitness on the hardtail, but you can session these downhills. I mean, and the amount of progression you get on an e-bike, being able to session things and ride things over and over, is enormous. So if you want to advance your riding, then an e-bike it can be rocket fuel. And can you get the same fitness benefits out of a trail bike? Well, maybe not. I know a lot of people that ride in eco mode or turn the bike off here and there. There's still a lot of fitness. I still don't think that the fitness you get on the e-bike can match an analog bike, just because the temptation to turn the motor on or turn the motor up as an option is so strong. But yeah, I think an e-bike would be an awesome second bike if trail bike's off the table. What do you think, and what direction would you go?
Well, to just kind of back up what you're saying, which is, if you were interested in fitness, don't forget you didn't sell your hardtail. So you could on your fitness days, you would just take your hardtail out. So no, you could still have an e-bike, you know, and that would be a second good bike. You know,
and you could take your e-bike to the downhill park too. Like it opens up park riding.
Yeah, and I think you kind of wanting to set the table really does make a difference here. You know, it's really going to come down to the type of person that you are. You know, if you're someone that wants to get into jumps and stuff like that, then the e-bike makes a lot of sense because you can session and not have to get tired out. You know, if you're someone like myself who, you know, I do like the fitness part of it. Like that is a really important part of my riding. The e-bike would not be the second bike that I would get. And I think that most people would think that I would say single speed. And while I love the single speed, and you and I could go days and days, talk about all the advantages and how that's made us a better ride, I think I would surprise some people and say, I was going to say fat bike, but no, let's go ultra surprise. I'm going to say dirt jumper. What? Yeah, I have really, wow. I know. The thing is, Danny, I've enjoyed that dirt jumper more than I thought I would. And so I guess if your first bike was a hardtail, it would be really hard to suggest to somebody that they should get a dirt jumper. But maybe this might be more for someone that had a full suspension as their first bike. I think the second bike as a dirt jumper makes a lot of sense. Here's why. The dirt jumper really allows you to learn how to work the bike. You know, first of all, you're most likely going to be on flats. Like I don't know anybody that's running a dirt jumper on clips. So right off the bat, you know, you have to work this bike and maneuver your body with flat pedals. That's one. Then two, the bike is very small. It's a very different ride. You're on 26-inch wheels, which makes the bike more fidgety. Like when you get on the dirt jumper and you go to your larger bike, that's the first thing you'll notice is like the geo is very upright and the wheels are very small. So the bike feels very like twitchy, you know, it doesn't feel stable. So you're controlled, like you suck your legs in, you know, to kind of squeeze the top tube a little bit, you know, and like everything has to be a little bit more deliberate. Man, you pick up a lot on that dirt jumper.
Well, having a dirt jumper certainly would be very, very good tool for progression. And if you start hitting those jumps on a dirt jumper, you're going to be really comfortable doing on a mountain bike. So that's the reason I keep taking my dirt jumper to desert trails, is because if I can do this on a dirt jumper, I can do it on my mountain bike. I can already do it on my mountain bike. But the dirt jumper is another level, and it really does force you to do it the right way. It's a great one as far as the budget's concerned. You know, you can get a used dirt jumper for $500 to $700 probably. And you can get a new one for like $1,000, $1,200, $1,500, $2,000 for like the nicest dirt jumper that you can find online is probably about $2,000. So very reasonably priced. I like your points. I don't think I would say that would be the general population's best second bike, because that's I think it's a smaller segment of people that want to refine their skills that much, that want to get in the air that much, that are going to be comfortable getting in the air. I mean, we're talking about new riders being from kids all the way up until, you know, all ages. So not everyone is going to be able to say, I'm going to excel on this little bike and I'm going to want to be getting up in the air. A lot of people just want to get out and have fun and just ride their trails. So an e-bike is perfect for getting out and having fun. And you can session jumps on an e-bike, and you can also session tech. You could keep climbing up and do a tech line 3, 4, 5 times until you get comfortable with it, if that's what you want to do. Or you could just go out and take it for a ride. You get the recovery ride from it if you want to do active recovery, or you can trail ride on it. It's downhill park. I think the e-bike's got it all over the dirt jumper. What do you think?
I think that you're correct that the e-bike is a lot more versatile. That's for sure. You know, it will
kind of unfair to give the e-bike as an option. It's kind of unfair because it's a full suspension bike and you said no trail bike.
Well, I mean, the e-bike can be anything. An e-bike doesn't have to be full suspension, but just to go back to what you're saying, it is a very versatile bike, which is, you know, I was struggling because what I wanted to say was fat bike, but I was like, well, I think everybody would know that I would say that, you know, because the fat bike, you can ride all year round. I love my fat bike. You know, I ride that thing I ride that thing on jumps. Like I took it to Skyline and had a blast on it. Like there's nothing that a fat bike can't do. And the fact that you can ride it in the snow is like just a plus. I'm trying to take a different stance because, the more I think about it, the people that I met at the Phoenixville Bike Park, some of those guys didn't even have a mountain bike. You look at Ryan first bike was actually a dirt jumper. And he literally bought I think he said he got a Rocky Mountain something. It was like an altitude or something. It was a full suspension bike and he was all excited. That was his second bike. We met Rob. His first bike was an e-bike. His second bike is a dirt jumper, and there are so many kids at the Phoenixville Bike Park that are riding dirt jumpers that don't want to ride a regular hardtail for whatever the reason, that this is like, they just want to jump. This is what they want to do. And I look at these kids and how talented they are. And when those kids, and I'm saying kids, but it could be young adults too, and adults as well. When you get proficient at working a bike like that, and then you take that and you go to another bike at some point down the line, you're going to want to upgrade your bike again. Like your mountain bike career doesn't end with just 2 bikes. Like you might only have 2 bikes, but you'll be upgrading and selling and whatever. Yeah. And whatever that third bike is going to be, everything you learn from that dirt jumper is going to be immensely helpful to you, more than what you would learn on an e-bike. And that's my point. Maybe you're sessioning more and blah, blah, you're getting more of that. But are you learning that much more? I'm arguing that you could learn a lot more from a dirt jumper than you could an e-bike. And I realize this might be a stretch, but I'm going to stick to my guns here.
I think sessioning on an e-bike is learning more. I think our jump journey showed that we were able to progress more because we were able to do so many more jumps on a local trail that was not lift assisted. We didn't need to go to a bike park. We went to Trexler and then we went to Mount Penn, and we were able to session and do more and more runs and get better and better at jumping. So our progression was definitely aided by the e-bike. It's a big reason that you and I decided that we eventually want to add e-bikes to our stable. And my other point, which might be a little bit of a hot take, is dirt jumping mountain biking. Is the sport of dirt jumping really mountain biking? Wow. Like you said, some of the best dirt jumpers we know don't even own mountain bikes. That's not mountain biking. Is that a different sport? A sub-sport?
Well, that's a whole podcast in itself. That topic could be a whole podcast in itself. So I don't even know if I want to touch that one yet, because I think I'd have to actually think about that one before I could even, off the top of my head, I would say, yes, it's still mountain biking, but I think you could easily make an argument either way. But let me go back to what you're saying about the e-bike, because it is true that the e-bike helped me get over the jump. But here's the thing. I had a mental block. That's different from someone that's just starting out. They're not going to have that same mental block. Like I literally broke my body going off a jump, and I had this mental block that I could not get over this lip. And the e-bike helped me get over that because of being able to session, but because of the weight of the bike and how planted it felt. But I don't know how many people are going to have that experience on their second bike. The Phoenixville Bike Park doesn't require an e-bike. None of these bike parks that are built correctly, maybe correctly is the wrong word, but none of these bike parks that you're going to find locally are going to have a big climb to the top. It's going to be very minimal. You don't need an e-bike to session there. We session Phoenixville Bike Park for 3 hours on regular analog bikes.
I understand the point that I thought you were going to make, which I think is excellent because I'm going to make it. Yes. Is learning how to jump a full suspension mountain bike is one thing. Learning how to jump a small dirt jumper bike is another level. So whereas we learned we broke through the being able to jump barrier on e-bikes. You started to clear the big 5 jumps at Mount Penn on the e-bike. And I went from clearing them sometimes to clearing them very, very consistently. But the dirt jumper technique is paramount. And if you're doing it wrong, you can get away with doing it wrong on a full suspension bike. That's what we're learning as I'm practicing at Desert Trails. Right. And as you're taking the bike, yours at Phoenixville Bike Park, your dirt jumper it's much harder on the small bike. And the input needs to be much, much more accurate and much precise. More, Yes, much more precise, and the balance needs to be right, and the boosting and the technique needs to be right. And a lot of these things can be kind of just waxed over, just kind of glossed over in the beautiful suspension that's built into full suspension mountain bikes now. And the dirt jumper does not allow that. So if you want to learn how to jump, then the dirt jumper is a great second bike. I love that it's inexpensive. You need to have certainly a local jump park that has progressive trails, not just a BMX park that starts with massive lips. So you need something that's going to be progressive. But there's definitely an argument to be made in there. My question for you is, those dirt jump skills that you get on the jumps, they're going to translate to jumping your mountain bike for sure. Yeah. Will those skills translate to other trail riding, to other parts of mountain biking?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But before I answer why, I want to say that the e-bike got me over the jump because of the mental wall. But when I started adding quote unquote steez to my riding, the tabletop, the bar turn, that was all on the analog and the dirt jumper and on my hardtail. For exactly that point is you have to be precise with all that. And so and it was also it's a lot lighter than the e-bike. So it's easier to move that bike. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble saying that, but there's just so many advantages to learn to work the bike on the dirt jumper or on a hardtail. And so then the next thing is, well, how does that translate to trail riding? And the thing is, part of the dirt jumper is learning to work the trail to get speed. A lot of these dirt jumpers are single speeds, and parks are built so that they're so tight that there's not room to pedal. And so what happens is you have to learn to pump the track. And that's the thing. You can we were just saying bike park, but you can also take a dirt jumper to a pump track, like the Velo Solutions pump track. Those guys at the pump track are not pedaling. There's pedals on their bike. They are not, I guarantee they're not pedaling. They are working that bike and they're pushing it into the turns. They're pushing it off of these humps, making transitions out of nothing. You can definitely take that over to the trail. I've seen Keaton do it. I've seen Logan do it. I've seen Evan do it. These guys are pumping the trail and popping off of stuff that I didn't even know was poppable. I'm looking at these guys. Look at Kyle and that rock that he hit. That dude's clearly got some kind of a dirt jump experience. His J-hop off of that rock kick. And poor Jeff Windsor, who had to follow Kyle. And I pointed this out to you. And Kyle just goes straight up into the air. He has that dirt jumping thing. And Jeff, I don't know if he has a dirt jumping background, but Jeff hit it more like a mountain biker would. It was a distinct difference of Kyle hitting this jump. And then you saw Jeff. Jeff looks great. Yeah, he looks amazing. He looks great.
Kyle's another level. Yeah.
Kyle, right. And that's what I'm saying. You can take the skills that you learn from the dirt jumper and apply it right to the trail. You absolutely can.
Let us know what kind of experience you have. Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail and YouTube comments. Weigh in on what the best second bike would be if trail bike is off the table. And we're going to see Ryan, our Phoenixville Bike Park friend, who is an amazing dirt jumper, bought a mountain bike. We're going to see him mountain bike. We're going to see that happen. So we're starting to see some of these experiments and some of these questions unfold. And let us know if you're listening and you're saying, yeah, I had a dirt jump background and this is how it translates over to mountain bike. It's not just jumping. There's other benefits as well. Let us know. Let us know that story, that experience. YouTube comments, Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail.
You unknowingly made another point for me, and that is, think of all the riders that we respect, like the riders that are like, oh man, he's really good or she's really good, and we ask them what their background is, and like BMX, which is not a dirt jumper, but it's a lot of the same technique. You watch Jeff Lenoski, who he has a trials background, but again, it's a very hardtaily bike, and these guys are having to work these. Yeah, they're taking a smaller bike that's harder to move around and learning how to work that bike. I think you're making a really good point, and there's no doubt the benefits of having a smaller bike or a dirt jumper to play around on and to start honing those skills that is going to make you a better mountain biker.
it just depends who we're talking about. If we're talking about the general public at large, then I think more people would enjoy the e-bike. I just don't know how many of the general public of all ages. Like if you're like, okay, you're 17 and you're getting a second bike and you have a BMX park nearby, then yeah, dirt jumper makes a ton of sense. But if you're 55 and your local trails don't even have jumps, then an e-bike is probably going to be a lot more fun. There's so much context. And I think in the broad general population question, an e-bike or a dirt jumper, I would lean an e-bike for the most amount of fun. But then you're talking about a huge change in budget also. You know what I mean? You're talking about going from $1,000 to a couple $1,000 for an e-bike, like 6, 7 entry level. It's a really, really big difference. And it's also a lot easier to haul a dirt jumper around than an e-bike. I mean, there's a lot of other nuance to it. As far as making you a better rider and doing it for the least amount of money, the dirt jumper's a great choice.
Yeah.
It's a good argument. And you're not just blowing smoke. You really aren't, because at one point in our podcasting, when we were talking about the next bike we would want, before you had the Infinity dirt jumper, thank you, Brian, you had said, I think I would get a dirt jumper before I would get an e-bike. So you are absolutely walking the walk, riding the ride.
I have to be honest though, like before I said the dirt jumper, I was thinking fat bike. In my head, I'm like, oh yeah, fat bike is a really, but
I'm surprised because when your Mojo was out of commission, when your full suspension bike was out of commission, you rode the single speed. You didn't even ride the fat bike. Was that more because you were worried about cracking the rim or the comfort?
I didn't have the cush core. Yeah. I didn't have the cush core. That was,
okay.
It literally came down to that. The single speed has the cush core. The fat bike did not. As soon as I got the cush core in the fat bike, I started riding that everywhere, and it had been a tremendous amount of fun. And to be honest, that's probably the bike that I was going to pick, but I thought I'd have a little bit of fun with this, and it was fun. And I actually came up with more points than I thought I had. And even you came up with points for me, which I thought was really interesting. So I don't know, man. I think we have a pretty solid argument for both cases. I love it. It was a great conversation. And by the way, just to kind of bring this back to where we started, I think you and I would both agree, if you had a hardtail, the best bike really is a trail bike. It's no question. We're saying if that was off the table, what would be the next bike on the list? So that was fun. What is the ideal,
real quick, what is the ideal amount of travel for a trail bike for the general world, the general public, and of everybody listening around the world?
Yeah, 140 back, 150 front. I think that'll do it. And then if you have a bike like the Stumpy that you can change the geo, I mean, it's even better, because now you can take it to the downhill park and not even worry. So yeah.
I think in that range is really good. I think 140 back, 130. I mean, it depends. There's a whole nother podcast in here about overbiking versus underbiking, which we've been kind of discussing, because my Firebird seems like it might be overbiking at so many places, but is it? If you're using all that travel, is it? So there's a whole conversation in there, but so there's a whole range that you can go into. Nuanced range that you can go into the trail bike conversation as well. Let us know what you think about our conversation. Let us know a trail bike, ideal trail bike, and if you're thinking about getting a second bike, if you're thinking about getting a third bike. This is all really, really fun stuff to talk about. Mountain bikers love talking about buying new bikes. Which bike should I buy? And here's my budget. Here's my parameters. You can put it into the Ride and Left Strava page, but certainly we want to hear about it in the YouTube comments and the Gmail, and we'll help you hash it out. We love spending other people's money. We love spending our own money, as long as it's buying bike stuff, right?
yeah, for sure. Yes. Yeah. No, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. You want to get into your mountain bike gratitude of the week?
My mountain bike gratitude, and this is huge, Danny. The podcast has reached on YouTube 500 subscribers, and I don't know what to say, man. I don't know what to say. I'm so happy that we're reaching this many people, and the sky's the limit, bro. We're taking this all the way. Thank you, everyone.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for subscribing on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast player and you're not interested in the YouTube, check it out anyway and maybe subscribe and watch it again.
Hey.
But we appreciate it. I don't know too much about the YouTube world, and Sage has been in this world for a long time with his Trail Sage channel. If you haven't watched it yet, check it out. He's got a ton of awesome content in there, and Lanky D's in a lot of it. He sticks in a lot of it. So you get to see a lot of your favorite ride laughers. So you know that the growth of the podcast has been like really steady and really consistent and really outstanding. It's been very encouraging that not just certainly on the podcast side, but this is our first podcast, but you know the video side, and you've always said it's doing really well. People are, and the feedback that we get is fantastic. So I'm enormously grateful. I'm really excited. I think the sky's the limit. I know that we're unlimited. I think we're going to be the #1 mountain bike podcast in the world, but abundance for everybody. All the other podcasts, if you love mountain biking, listen to whatever you want, as long as Ride and Laugh is part of it.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, my mountain bike gratitude of the week, and I alluded to this in the beginning of the podcast, my mountain bike gratitude of the week is the state of Arizona. And what we have here in Arizona is the sun, and we have a lot of really great vibes, and there's a lot of really great doctors. And I've alluded in past podcasts that my family is going through some health issues. And so today I'm going to share with all the listeners that my beautiful wife, Lauren, who is amazing and strong and lovely and just the light of my life, she has been battling breast cancer for the past 3 years. And it's been quite the experience, and we're always looking for silver linings. We're always looking for something to appreciate in each experience. What are we going to learn out of this? What are we going to get out of this? And it's been a really, really wild ride and a really, really difficult one at times. And my wife absolutely just loves Arizona. We would visit here because her brother and sister-in-law were here, and she wanted to visit more and more. And we ended up buying a little property here so that we could come and spend more time here. And I would say about a year ago, we were here visiting on one of those visits, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. She lights up when she's here. We need to be here. And we talk about on the mountain bike being open to signs and being open to intuition. And that was one of my early experiences of really being open to intuition. It just hit me. It was just like the universe just like opened up my brain and said, you should move here. And so we did. And we're here full time now. We'll see what happens in the future. I still love Pennsylvania. I still have family in Pennsylvania. I still have my business in Pennsylvania. I plan to be back there a lot. I still got my Trail Sage in Pennsylvania, of course. It's off a bike. I have a freaking S-Works Evo in Sage's basement. That thing needs to be ridden for sure. But I know that everyone's a lot of people have been curious, where is Dan living now, or is it permanent? Because I've been in Arizona much longer than I usually am, and we are here for what feels like all the right reasons, and we're just flowing with life. We're making the best of it. And since I've gotten out here, I've met so many amazing and wonderful people, and my wife's met a lot of nice people, and the doctors out here are great. And the cancer journey, for anyone that's been through it, has a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and just like riding a bike, it's staying centered, staying balanced, looking for what's the best that can happen, because life gives you some really difficult things, and everyone's got their own journey, their own story, their own stresses that they're going through. Life always gives us difficult things to work through. Staying centered, staying grounded, looking for the best, looking to appreciate. How do I find appreciation in this is where it's at. And this is ultimately where she is going to get her ultimate healing and complete healing. And we have faith in that. And just gratitude to everybody that's listening and everyone that I've met, and to Sage for being such an amazing support system for me. And so many other people, I can't even go into it. My family, my business partner. I have so many people that I have gratitude for. And certainly all the listeners as we surpass 500 subscribers on YouTube and move forward with this. It's mountain biking has brought me so much joy, and I just have overwhelming appreciation for that. And that's my gratitude. It's a heavy one this week.
I don't know what to say to any of that, except that I love you, Lauren, and she has been an absolute angel in my life too. And she's gonna kick this thing in the rear end. And you are an amazing human being. And I think I hope that it puts a lot of this into perspective for a lot of people about, we're not just saying these things, we're living it. When we say we're going with our intuition, when we're saying live in the moment, this is we're living it, we're doing it, and this is it's amazing. You are one of the strongest people I know, Danny. Maybe Lauren is probably stronger than you, but you're a second. You're second on that. Yeah. You're second on that list. And you have you've helped me through a lot of stuff. And I got nothing but love for you both. So, although I do wish you were here more, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
I know. Yes. I do miss Trail Sage. There are trips being planned. There are things happening. Yes. There are things in the works. So stay tuned. There's going to be some really, really exciting, really cool stuff happening. As far as everything that we're going through and my family's going through, so many times and so many of these conversations that we've had, Sage, and we've talked about this on the podcast too, the answer of how to handle all of this and all these emotions and all these fears, right? The answer always comes back to presence. Be in the moment. Just be here now. Right now, everything is okay. And don't move ahead with anxiety and don't look back with regret. This is where we are. And what can I find to appreciate in this moment? And I think that the universe is rigged in our favor. I think everything can go right for us if we have the right perspective.
I love it, man. Well, speaking of lessons, our mountain bike tip of the week, I had something else planned, but you had brought up something that Aaron had said, and it brought up a tip that I think would be helpful. It kind of goes back to the whole night riding thing. If you have not tried night riding and you're looking to get into night riding, you need a light, but you actually need 2 lights. And that's my mountain bike tip. I think it's obvious you need a light on your bike. You put one on the front of your handlebars or something like that. The right move is actually to pair that with another light on your helmet, because if you put it on your helmet, then the light will be able to shine where you want to go. So the one that's on your bike is stationary, it doesn't move, it just goes to the front. But if your head swivels, now you can see around a turn, or you can point out other things. That second light will really make a huge difference.
Yeah, I think the reason the second light is so good, there's multiple reasons the second light is so helpful. First of all, if you're out in the dark and you're on a trail and your first light, something happens to your first light that you run out of charge, or it's not charged, or it just breaks or something like that, you need to have another light. So you definitely need another way of getting out other than trying to hold on to your phone while you're riding. Yeah. And then the second point that you made about having the light on your helmet to be able to shine where you're going. So your handlebars aren't going to always be facing where you're going. I think that's an excellent point. Having 2 lights is much more fun.
I do have a light recommendation. I just remembered I reviewed the Magic Shine. And I remember I first started riding that I started with the Magic Shine. That company's been making lights for a really long time. I don't know if they're the best in the biz, but I know that they've been great for me. I've been using them. I currently use them on my scooter. I have an e-scooter, and I'll use the Magic Shine on that as well. So they do make great lights. Comment down below what your favorite lights are, and let's get a conversation going.
Yeah. I know I've seen Jeff Jackson. I've seen other people doing night rides here in Arizona, and the lights look amazing. So I'm not sure which lights they're using, but I'm sure we'll find out. RideLife1 at Gmail, YouTube comments, anything we've talked about today. We love your feedback. We love your comments, or even just letting us know that you're enjoying the pod, or if you have a certain question or a certain topic you want us to get into, we would be happy to take a look at that. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you're still listening, you clearly love mountain biking just like we do. Please rate and subscribe on your podcast player. Please rate and subscribe on YouTube. Help us grow the channel. Tell your friends about it. Everyone, have a fantastic week and a great week of riding. Ride and laugh.
Go Birds!